Welcome in, everybody. It's a great day to be a
It's a
Giants fan.
great day, bro. It is a great day. Let's go,
Let's just start popping the champagne.
bro.
Everybody pouring their
Oh,
shots out for us. Let's
I'm I'm
go.
I'm sober. I almost went to the store and grabbed a bunch of bottles of Martinelli apple cider and
Yeah,
started popping that in the bedroom, bro. Woo! It's a good
that's
day.
awesome. It's not often that Giants can end their season, the end of baseball season for us Giants fans, have a losing record, and you wake up on Monday and you just get hit with the great news, and you're in just a great mood, and then you get a
Bro.
smile on your face all day, and it's awesome.
Bro, I've been on cloud nine all day, and even customers I helped today, they're like, "You're extra happy today." I'm like, "There is a reason. You won't make sense to you, but there is a reason."
Lynn,
Oh,
when I was trying to think of a headline to put over, Dan and I, we were getting a little creative on some of these. I thought about trying to, for my thumbnail, I thought about trying to get the Steve Carell from The Office going. It's happening. It's happening. I tried to figure out that. Thought about putting Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Uh, thought it might piss a few people off. I mean, the original title was Humpty Dumpty had a great fall.
that was a good
Um,
one. That was a really good one.
so yeah, we had some fun ones that we were gonna do, but we didn't want to you know do it to the wrong people. So
We had a great day. We'll just put it that way.
yeah, yeah, we had lots of fun with it. So but yeah, so that's the big news. We got hit with the double whammy today. Farhan Zaidi, they announced he's leaving, or well, getting fired. It is what it is. But they announced that Farhan Zaidi is out as president of baseball operations, and very quickly afterward, we get hit with the second of that double whammy that Buster Posey is taking over as the new president. And I just can't help but get big John Lynch vibes when they
Yeah.
announce a guy like that. But it's like tenfold for a team like the Giants because Lynch was a legend of the game, Hall of Fame safety, but not with the Niners. Like Buster Posey is just kind of synonymous with San Francisco Giants baseball at this point. So pretty amazing. It's exciting. It's just so nice
Yep.
and refreshing to get, frankly, a baseball person in
Yeah.
place. Um,
Yeah, man.
so
I don't know about you, but it just as like a Giants fan, man, it just feels like a huge weight is off my shoulders and the fans' shoulders, man. It's just a great day.
yeah, let's see. Joaquin was not expecting the news today. Thoughts on people who are nervous because he doesn't have the experience. I saw Alex Pavlovich was saying if he doesn't like it or doesn't work out, he just drop it. I do believe that if Buster just feels like it's not for him or he's not good about like it's not a good fit for him or if he just doesn't think he's doing a good enough job, I don't think he's going to have any qualms with stepping down. Um, but one of the big things that I saw going around, and I don't understand some of the mindsets because, frankly, a lot of this is coming from the same people that were sitting there preaching patience with Farhan Zaidi and sitting there saying, well, he deserves more time. These same like 8 people on Twitter that are now just dumping
Mhm.
on hiring Buster Posey. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we've got it terrible and this is going to end so poorly for us. And it's like, why can't we have the same energy with him that you all had with Farhan? If you're going to sit
Yeah.
here and say that Farhan deserved forever, then why don't you at least give Buster a couple of years and let's see what he can do? And I do believe that he needs to get good, front office people, whether it's a good GM, a good assistant GM, both, whatever the case may be. He's going to need to surround himself with good people to handle like the business side, the day to day stuff, all of you know, probably assist him in negotiating contracts and working on the payroll and all that kind of stuff. But I
Yeah.
think Buster, if anything, knows what it takes between the lines to win. He knows the kind of players he's going to want to put out there. He knows the kind of team he's going to want to put out there. He's going to have a vision for this team and what it's going to look like. And I think that's just a perfect person to be the head of everything. That's setting the direction, setting the vision, setting all those things. I just think that's a perfect type of person to have. And the other narrative I want to squash is a lot of people are talking about, and I'm sure you saw it too, Dan, where they're mentioning how his legacy's on the line and his, the way he's viewed is on the line. And I think that's a load of crap personally.
So stupid.
He could be genuinely, I genuinely feel Buster could be like one of the worst presidents of baseball operations in the history of baseball. And at the end of the day, whenever he steps down or was fired or whatever, people would forget about it in a couple of years. Like they bring it up about, like they do Gretzky and Jordan. But the reality is among Giants fans, you wouldn't then look at him down the street and be like, oh, that's the guy that ran the team in the ground. No, that's the guy that was the face of the 3 championship teams, the first 3 World Series teams in San Francisco Giants history. So his legacy is not on the line at all. Like he's always going to be Posey.
I was just going to say, he's already cemented his legacy. Yeah. Like he's not going to tarnish it if he doesn't pan out as the president of baseball operations. Cause that's the way you got to look at it. In Farhan Zaidi's tenure, 6 years of ball. He had 1 winning season. He had 1 500 season and 4 losing years. Okay. This past season, we had a $230 million salary. We're the second tier of the luxury tax with a bottom tier farm system. And we had a losing season. You can literally only go up from here. Like that's the way that's the reality of it. So it's like, I don't understand, like you said, those few people on X, I mean, they already hate me. So it is what it is, but they're the same ones that are dissing this move. And all I can do is just laugh at them, man. It's just hilarious. So yeah, it's a great day to be a Giants fan, man. Buster Posey, first off, he loves the Giants. Yes. Like Mark said, Posey loves the Giants, man. All he wants to do is win. All he wants to do is succeed. He, like you touched on, he knows what it takes to get to the top. He's been on those winning teams. He's been the face of the franchise. He's been the leader in the clubhouse. He knows what it's going to take. And so I believe, like you said, if he surrounds himself with the right core in that front office, it's just destined for success. And if it doesn't pan out, big deal. It's not going to hurt him. He's already part owner. All he's got to do is go back to ownership and let somebody else slide in the POBO position in a few years or whatever. But no, man, it's a great move all around. And this type of move, to me, the fact that they didn't go outside of the organization to seek a president of baseball operations, that is literally screaming to me that they want to win now, because you're not going out to bring somebody else in that's going to, try to rebuild from the ground up. Like it's the sign that you're trying to win now. So I'm all for
it. This Buster right down here.
Either die the hero. I love it.
Oh man. I don't know, for any of you that saw the meme I put on X, I dabbled in the Drake meme a little bit with the Farhan and then the Buster.
Yeah, love it.
The other one that I saw, I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but big shout out to whoever sent out the tweet that said Buster Posey might be the first president of baseball operations that's a better hitter than every player on his active roster.
I couldn't help but laugh.
I saw that. I was like, dude, that's great.
Yeah, I couldn't help but laugh at that.
It's probably true. Sadly.
Yeah.
But let's see. We got a few in here. We're going to just be, today's going to be just party and chat interaction. We don't really have a set script today. We didn't think, we've been waiting for this video for a while. Anybody that felt like we were negative all season, hop on in, because there ain't going to be negativity here. Yeah. This is going to be our one big celebration that Farhan is gone. And I am just celebrating the fact that I don't have to go spend another full off season trying my hardest to be objective towards the guy when he has been terrible for 6 years. And that's not to say he hasn't done some good things. He has. I've openly acknowledged and given him credit when he has done good things. Heck, on the last video, I gave him a ton of credit for the international progress they had made. Yeah. But I was not looking forward to another offseason of trying to be nice to the guy the whole time. So I'm glad I don't have to, after this video, he's gone. I'm going to let it go. We're going to move on. It's Buster's era. But today we get to still crack some jokes and have some fun. Oh, yeah. So
it's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to be great. So yeah, I'm planning on just interacting with you guys, giving you my thoughts, and being a as happy of a caveman as I can be today. I'm hyped.
All right. Do we think Pete gets let go? I know you were someone that would have liked him to have been president of baseball operations. Yeah, I mean, so I'll start off by saying I like the move to Buster more because I think Buster is so well respected around the game, both by the players, other coaches, executives, whatever it may be. I think if anybody is ever going to get this to be a very desirable destination, I think he's a guy that would be very high on that list. And I understand, like, he tried to pitch the team when he was a player and things like that. But, at the end of the day, it does fall in ownership. And I think with him being one of the minority owners, like, he knows what they can spend. And I think, I do believe there's kind of, when they came to the agreement with Matt Chapman, like, he probably told him, like, we're going to spend, like, we are putting a winner together. So I'm going to give him full benefit of the doubt until he proves otherwise. I'm going to be critical of Buster just like I was Farhan on things I don't agree with. I try to be as objective as possible. But that said, it's still Buster Posey. Like I said earlier, no matter what he does, I'm not going to think, ill of the guy, no matter how he runs the club right here. But to answer your question, do I think Pete gets let go? It sounds like it's kind of up in the air still. They were very fast to swap Buster to the president of baseball operations on their website, is my understanding. And if you look currently, Pete Patilla is still listed as the GM. So I don't know if it means anything. It might not. I really like Patilla. I think he has a great background as far as scouting, player development, things like that go. I feel like he proved himself over the last couple of years with how well the system, how well they were advancing players quickly through the system and some of the impacts of the young players. But I understand if they go full on, like if they clean house a bit in the front office. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm
great candidates.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's 50-50. I think we'll know for sure tomorrow. And it's ultimately up to Buster whether, like you touched on, whether he wants to bring in his own staff entirely or if he wants to, retain part of it and bring in part. It's ultimately up to him. So I think we'll get some clarity tomorrow during the press conference in the morning. But like Cody said, I like Pete. I liked what he did these last couple of years. I wouldn't mind to see him stick around. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's moved in the slightest. So
I think if anybody could, it would be Buster, but I don't think that. I do feel like that bridge is kind of burned. But never say never. I mean, Sabian's issues may have been more with Farhan, but I don't think we would end up seeing that. Grant says, to be honest, I hope it's not a huge front office shakeup. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think it's going to be a massive shakeup. I do think they're going to retain a lot of the same people. I was listening to Foul Territory earlier, and they were mentioning how like Ken Rosenthal was visiting on there, and they were mentioning how Dave Dombrowski has talked about how like you can't just come into a position like this and just start firing everyone. He's like, it's something that you do more over time. Like you may remove a person or two and then like input a couple of your own people, which is common, and then the rest of it just kind of weeds out. But there's so much staff that you have to kind of like get to know what you have. So that first year, you're not going to just dump everyone. That would have to come from ownership.
And if that was going to happen, it would have been a situation where they announced the firing of Bomel and Farhan, because then you kind of get the sign that it's going to be a complete overhaul. It's already been basically confirmed that Melvin's sticking around next year. So coaching wise, there might be a couple small changes. Hopefully I see them dump Vili and Guerrero for starters. Just for starters. And then there's a couple more that I'd consider. And then front office, like I said, it's really up to Buster as far as, who he wants to bring in, but it's not going to be anything major for the reasons Cody said.
Yeah. I know it's not going to be the most popular thing. I personally don't mind Melvin getting one more season.
Yeah.
I believe that this is just my belief. I believe that Buster is going to put more of a traditional roster out there with more defined roles. And I think Bob Melvin would excel more in something like that than, because just listening to how he talked about the way the club was run, and this could have just been Melvin trying to save his own bacon and cover his assets. He could have just been saying it to say it, but you could tell that Bob kind of second guessed a lot of the moves he made this season, because I think he had what he wanted to do, and then he had what the analytics wanted him to do. And he felt it almost felt like a guy that was constantly in conflict on which route to go. And he mentioned feeling like he should have trusted his gut more, particularly when it came to some of like the lefty on lefty matchups and things like that, where he pinch hit for guys. But then, you look down and we all bag on Conforto, but he had a 900 something OPS against lefties this season, just as an example. So it's like, there were things that, that he didn't do probably the way he wanted. So I don't mind it. I think it's going to be a team that is better equipped. And you know what? If they do put a good roster together and Melvin's just super disappointing again next season, I don't think they're going to have any issue just not picking up his option and letting him walk.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it was kind of apparent throughout the year that it was just a bad match. It was a match that was not made in heaven between Farhan and Bomel, just because, like you said, the differences in philosophy. So I think going back to more of a traditional approach will be super beneficial for not only the coaching staff, but the team as a whole.
Yeah. And Posey's not going to be just a anti-analytics. Like, let's get that straight.
100%.
He does subscribe to some of those things. I don't think he's going to be fully reliant on it. I do think he has a better feel for the makeup of players and things like that. Like, there's just stuff that goes beyond the box score scouting and the sabermetric scouting and things like that I think he's going to be a big contributor to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Real quick. I was going to say, because part of it comes down to abusing the analytics, because every single team in the league uses analytics. Don't get me wrong. We're not bashing that by any means. But when you become more dependent on analytics rather than a feel for the game, that's where it becomes a problem. And I think that's where, a lot of that traditional style that Posey and Bomel can start to implement, that they're more naturally accustomed to, can really kind of make it shine.
Yeah. I think Pete Patilla comes back, but I could see him in another role. Does David Bell come back? Some guy on a podcast believes the Giants bring Crawford in as a coach and reassign the hitting coaches. I mean, I'm not as much blaming Burrell as a lot of people you'll see on the fans. But that said, if they wanted to just get rid of all three and then bring in like one central voice to be like the guy, and then obviously you'll have like assistants and things like that, I wouldn't hate that. I would understand. I just can't really blame Burrell. I mean, the way I described it was, and I've heard them over on NorCal when I guest over there, they use it as an analogy, is firing Burrell for all the issues that Veely and all those guys have caused for years prior to Burrell being here is kind of like treating the symptoms and not the disease. So I don't see that. It's possible they could reassign those. Now, David Bell, I think that's an interesting one. He did have experience in the Giants front office prior to going to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. I think he kind of was like one of the minor league, what was it, like the farm director? What do they call that position?
Yeah.
Something like that. So maybe he comes back in a similar role. I think it's pretty clear he's not a manager. He needs to never, ever be a manager again. But, he could play a central role.
I think I read somewhere that Posey's agent or his old agent might be, potentially in his staff, which is kind of interesting. So, no, it'll be cool to see how he kind of constructs the front office and the coaching staff and whatnot. I think we're just hoping, for anything better than what we've had lately.
Yeah. Like Melvin, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Posey bring Vogt back here eventually. And I will say this, Vogt is doing so great in Cleveland. I don't see him going anytime soon. That said, there is another former Giants backup catcher that I would not be surprised to see.
Hundley.
Nick Hundley.
Yeah, I like Hundley.
That would be another guy that I could see. he's a bit old school, just
He
in
is.
mindset. That said, a lot of those guys are, a lot of former catchers. They are players managers. So I could see him. I just remember him being really fiery. That was
Very.
a Willie Mack Award winner in 2017.
Yeah,
that sounds right. He's certainly super respected, and I'd imagine he has a ton of Posey's respect.
Yeah.
So
He's a great guy. I've chatted up with him a few times. He used to hook it up with, I think I told you in a few weeks ago, he used to hook it up with all the foul balls or after his strikeouts, because I go to a game pretty much 5-6 days a week in SF. So he always recognized me in the same scene and kind of tossed one up. He's a cool guy. Then we met before game, after game. So yeah, he's a really cool guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like Hundley. I think he'd be a good one eventually.
Great one. Yeah, great one. And I mentioned it earlier or today on X, because there were whispers or whatever last off season that Farhan wanted to get JT Snow on the coaching staff, but he didn't have his number. Otherwise, he would have offered him a job, which is kind of like BS to me. So I'm hoping, we bring in some of those old heads back. We bring in, JT Snow. I know the Thrill. There's rumors that he stayed away from a coaching position because he didn't really want to work under Farhan. So hopefully with Buster being in, the Thrill might be interested in a coaching spot. It'd just be cool to see a lot of these old players come back.
Yeah. The day Bryce Eldridge is going to be up here, I'd be having JT Snow. I mean, honestly, right now, I'd have JT Snow I would have had him down in Sacramento or Richmond or Eugene working with the guy. I mean, yeah, JT was awesome defensively, and
I love JT.
They're going to need somebody working with Bryce, because he's not terrible. Like, don't get me wrong, he's sneaky athletic. He moves well for a big guy, but this is a guy that DH'd in high school and pitched, so he's gonna need work at first to be good. That said, I know Thrill thinks he can be a Gold Glover there, so we'll see
for sure.
Ned Coletti. I think Coletti, I don't know if he's open to coming back to baseball, but my gut says he's probably done. Hey, Joe, now did Baggerly follow up and say Shelley actually is the GM, or because the last time I saw he was just kind of speculating he's a kind of a name to watch?
No, I think there was a conversation they were having in the chat.
Okay. So I saw him speculate.
Because he's not the GM though. That hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah, Tim Wotus was working with Bryce. I did notice that during one of the Sacramento games before they had even said something. They showed the dugout, and I was like, "Isn't that Wotus?" During one of the games. Mike, I do not know if Clark is going to Arizona at all to work with Bryce.
Hopefully,
but it would be cool if he was. I mean,
super cool.
Yeah, definitely needs some work there.
I want to chime in. Let's see. We had a bunch. Guys, keep sending your comments. That's what we're going to be doing tonight. Well, Clark's been streaming to get rid of Farhan. Yeah, I know. I love the Thrill.
Yeah. Clark has one of the most amazing podcast channels with Eric Burns. If you guys don't already listen, go check out the catching, what is it, all catch 22s or something like that, or
something like
it's
that.
On the No Filter Network. That's all I know, but it is so, there are so many good stories on there. Him and Burns are both just phenomenal personalities. So if you don't already listen, you should go check it out. It's pretty awesome. I think Clark really just liked Vaughn's makeup, but sometimes guys just can't make adjustments and make contact. So
because Von Brown was what? He was like the number 5 or number 7 in the system at one point. So it's he had a decent amount of hype and whatnot. It just didn't pan out. I mean, it happens.
Yeah. Him and McRae are very similar players.
Yeah, very similar.
Tons of speed, tons of power, very questionable hit tools.
Exactly.
And you just kind of, I remember looking at both those guys and thinking if one of them could figure out their hit tool, that would be awesome, because they were both super toolsy.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
Where is it? I lost it, but there we go. Joaquin asked, how much change can he actually produce in his first offseason? I almost don't want to expect a brand new team or have this insane expectation. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Okay. I'm not going into this offseason thinking he needs to completely revamp the whole team, or I'm going to think it was a failure. Now, Farhan had reached that point, but that's because Farhan had 6 years of one playoff appearance. He had earned the expectation of you better make the playoffs or you best get stepping. Like that was the expectation for Farhan. Buster, in fairness to any president of baseball operations, GM, whatever, anyone that's the decision maker, I usually give 3 years.
Yeah.
And at the end of year 3, you better have, I don't put like a set, you need to win this many games or by year 3 or you better be in the playoffs or whatever. Now this team is close enough that I do believe they should be in the playoffs by then, but I usually give 3 years and you better have a clear direction, vision. You better be on an upward trajectory. Like we better be able to see what you're doing and it looks good. And if we can't, which Farhan, he kind of lucked into that massive career years out of Posey, Belt, Crawford, everybody went nuts and they win 107 games, not to take like any credit away from him, but just he ran into that. So everybody saw that. But then over the next 3 years, it was just directionless, mediocre baseball. So yeah, that's what my personal feelings. That's what I need to see. But to answer your question, like, do I think he could? I mean, possibly, but I think the better, I think the better bet is that maybe he can re-sign a Snell or someone like that, and then get like an impact bat, a Willie Adames type player or a T.O. or Santander or something like that. Like maybe he gets Snell back and gets like one impact free agent and at least makes some progress.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If he plays his cards right, you can absolutely make the playoffs next season. He's going to have, just to the first luxury tax bracket, he's going to have like 120, 130 mil to play with going into this offseason with a bunch of holes in your lineup and on the field. And you've got the players that are out there to fill those spots. So, I mean, if you play your cards right, as far as filling those gaps, bringing in the right staff and, establishing that winning culture, there's a good chance, you can win 90 plus games next year.
Yeah. Here's what I want to touch on really quick. Where is
Mocha Leak? Yes. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. sfgiants.com.
Yeah. I see Frederick. I think right here, he says the whole thing's got me spooked. That's what bad orgs do. I don't know if you mean that they, kind of try and pander to the fans. Because the one thing I will say with Posey is he's kind of a special case. This isn't just, hey, we brought in some former player. It's not like, hey, Brandon Belt was bored and they brought Brandon Belt back. Like Posey has been involved. He's been in ownership, from a leadership standpoint, both on the field and off the field for the better part of 15 plus years. So, and I think if he does surround himself with smart baseball people where he can just be like, here's my vision, and then have the guts to make some big moves, understanding from his time in baseball that that's what it takes is bold moves usually to get to the mountaintop. I think it can be an excellent hire, but it could also blow up. I mean, as we kind of mentioned earlier, guys like Gretzky and Michael Jordan and, a long other list of former great players didn't turn into, good executives. So it could, but the other person that said it might get worse, I don't personally think it could really get worse per se. The reality is, yes, the team could bottom out, but if they bottom out, at least they're probably going to acquire some talent. And frankly, I got tired of watching directionless baseball in the middle, at or below 500.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's about as bad as it can be. You're either good and young, or you're either good and old, good and young, or bad and young. You cannot be mediocre to bad and old. And that's what the Giants were for years. Like, to me, that is as bad as it gets.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's not like you're hiring, like you touched on, a Belt or a Crawford who went from being a player last year to being the president of baseball operations with no experience. Like you touched on, Posey's been a part of recruiting as a player. He's been the face of the franchise as a player. He's been the clubhouse leader as a player. He's been an owner for the last couple of years. He's been involved in these negotiations the last couple of years. He's well respected around the league with players, with coaches, with executives, with other teams. It's not like you're getting somebody just fresh off the street and plugging them in there. He's already, got a sense of what it takes to do this job. And he's got the respect factor. And that's what a big part of that job kind of entails with. So I think, like you said, if he can bring in the right staff to surround himself with, where he doesn't have, the whole weight of the world on his shoulders, and he can kind of, establish roles for his core in that front office, as far as, how to dictate and decide what his vision is for the team. I mean, it's a match made in heaven, man. It's the best possible scenario. And like I mentioned briefly in the beginning of this episode, if you go outside of the organization to bring in a president of baseball operations rather than hire within or hire somebody like Posey, if you go outside of the organization, you are basically saying, hey, we are rebuilding. We want you to establish your own culture. We want you to establish your own coaching staff, your own team. We're rebuilding under you. With Posey coming in, that's a sign that, hey, we want to win now. We got a couple cornerstones in the lineup. We got a couple cornerstones on the coaching staff. We want you to come in and take us over that hump that Farhan's been unable to do for these last few years in terms of, development, in terms of free agency, in terms of trading, in terms of, just bringing talent onto this team. So I think that's where the Giants are kind of at right now. And I honestly believe this is a great, great move for us to make. Free agency and trades will definitely get better as far as draft and TBD. Yeah, agreed. And I mean, we're going to get a taste of it. We're likely going to have a top 15 pick this upcoming season. So we'll see what Buster does with that. And Cody, you're muted, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Grant, I think that's totally fair. I mean, we'll see how the drafting goes. I think that's where keeping a guy like Patilla can be handy.
Yeah,
I love what the drafts have looked like the last 2 years. Now, it's going to take some time to see if it actually pans out, but I've liked what they've done in the drafts the last couple of years. Turd, I touched on that a bit earlier as far as does he get a free pass? I mean, I don't think he's going to get a free pass in the sense that he's like exempt from criticism, but I think ultimately, even if he stinks, like it's not. As soon as he steps down and he steps away from it, I think people will not really care about his tenure as the president within a few years afterward.
Yeah.
I just realistically, because of who he is, like he's going to be a legend in San Francisco no matter what he does. As far as in the front office, it would have to be like a big character issue off the field for it to tarnish his legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, since we have 104 people watching this right now, anybody that's whether on X, YouTube, if you haven't hit the like or the subscribe button, do hit that. We are going to be putting out Giants content all off season, usually at least 2 to 3 videos a week. Our goal is to still put out the live shows every week, or nearly every week. I'm sure Dan will have some stuff. We'll have holiday weeks, and I know I'm going on vacation in February, so there will be times that we may not get a live in, but we do try and do content every single week. We did get Giants 5th round pick Jacob Christian on the show last week. We are hoping to get more interviews like that. Have a couple people we have someone that covers the Giants that we are going to be working on setting a date to get him over. Big prospect guy, so we'll try and get that going. That's all the hint I can give for right now until we get it confirmed. But so we have a lot of plans and stuff that we want to get going. But yeah, if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe. The goal is to hit 1,000 by opening day next season.
Yeah,
and that's going to be my full pandering for today.
It's valid pandering, don't worry. So let me ask you this, since a lot of comments I'm seeing, what are the realistic moves free agency wise that you can see Buster making now that he's, POBO?
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of money and funds they have available, as well as the additional that they could create by moving on from players like Wade or like Mike Yastrzemski, who while yes they are worth probably the money that they're going to be paid next season, I think we need to break this mindset of never looking to upgrade at positions just because we have guys that are serviceable or quote above average at those spots. And I feel like that's something that Zaidi was very notorious for. So they can create quite a bit of money. I think we've seen they're probably 90 or so million dollars under this year's payroll right now.
Yeah.
And or at least 90 to or like 100 million or so under the competitive balance tax. So they have a lot of wiggle room before reaching that. I'm never going to go the Soto route unless they just happen to, if they prove me wrong. I hope they prove me wrong. I would love to see Juan Soto crushing baseballs for the next 15 years, but probably not. I think realistically, you could maybe get a Snell, maybe get an Adames, or, Anthony Santander. George just mentioned a trade for like Bichette. I think Kim needs to be scratched from your list. With that torn labrum, I would not go near him. I'm hoping I think he might have an option with San Diego. I hope he picks it up because I don't want that to be an option.
It's a 10 mil option.
Yeah. Is it a player option?
Yeah.
He better pick that up. If you got a torn labrum, get paid 10 million to rehab, bro.
Absolutely.
100%. But yeah, I mean, I think realistically, they're going to need to sign a pitcher. They're going to need to sign a middle of the order hitter, and probably need to upgrade shortstop because we don't really have anything there for quite a while. I guess they could throw Fitzgerald there, but to me, he proved he's not really defensively capable of being the everyday shortstop.
Yeah, and the reason I ask because I have one legitimate concern with Posey. It's my one and only, and that concern is: does he or will he be able to separate the personal relationship with the business relationship in the game? And what I mean by that is there's a handful of players that are on this team that he was teammates with, that he's friends with. You got, like you touched on, you got the Wades, the Yazes, the Wilmers, players like that. So is he going to be able to separate himself, as far as being their boss and being their friend and make those tough decisions? Or is he going to give in and say, hey, buddy, we're really good friends. I'm going to tender you a contract and, we're going to just roll it out with you next season. So that's the only thing that concerns me. I know he's a professional. He's a true professional. So part of me believes that, he will make those tough decisions and recognize those positions need to be upgraded. But I can't help but kind of worry to an extent just because he's got those relationships built as a teammate. So that's my only concern. That's the reason I ask. Because if you were to ask me realistically who I think they can sign and who they should sign, like you touched on, Blake Snell. If you asked me this 3 days ago, I didn't think we had much of a chance. But now with Buster being in, I know that he understands the importance of having a dominant arm in the rotation. So I think there's a good chance that, or a better chance now that he can re-sign Snell. So that's one. Adames, I think he has to be your number one target aside from Snell going into this year. Because like I said, if Kim was healthy, I think they would sign him, 7 days out of the week. But with that labrum, stay far away, go after, the positions that you have already came out and said that you need to address, which is middle of the order bat and middle infield position. Adames fills both those needs. Pull the trigger on that. And then if they are willing to move on and make those tough decisions to move on from Wade and from Wilmer, that will open up the first base position. I am perfectly fine with letting Bryce start the season next year in Sacramento. I don't want to rush his development. And if you can bring in a guy like Goldschmidt on a 1-year deal who notoriously rakes at Oracle Park, and you can bring him in to be a mentor for Bryce Eldridge for that 1 year, I am all for that. I am absolutely all for that. And then lastly, like you touched on, a Santander. Santander move would be great if you're willing to, part ways with Yaz, plug him in as either an outfielder or a designated hitter for the time being. And how can I forget? I want Travis d'Arnaud. I've said this for months now. You need to platoon the catching position next year. You need to have Bailey bat exclusively from the left and bring in d'Arnaud to platoon with him, the bat righty. So those are the 5 moves that I think are realistic. I think you can absolutely make. You can sign those 5 players and still stay under the luxury tax next season. And it addresses all the needs in your lineup. So Posey, if you need to bring someone to the office, hit me up, bro. Hit me up.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, Dan pretty much covered all of it for anybody asking like who's out there. Like there's options, and I don't think it's realistic to think that he's going to address every single need and fill it with some star player or anything like that. But I do think it's fair to have an expectation that he's going to at least fill in another starter, and he needs to address shortstop. Yeah. Or at least the middle infield of some capacity, and get a guy that can hit too in the middle of the order. If Kim was healthy, I would kind of expect like Kim, a middle of the order bat, and then a pitcher of sorts, whether it was Snell or not. But with Kim not being healthy, I think you could really kill 2 birds with 1 stone by getting, Adames and get a guy that you can plug into the 5 spot in the order, feel good about that. And also he's generally speaking an above average defensive shortstop. This season, he was a lot closer to average, maybe even below average, but he has a long track record of being really good. I do believe he'll at least be a solid defender there, going forward. But yeah, I see Davis. Yeah, Adames, Teoscar Hernandez, Santander. Those are probably the middle of the order guys that are reasonably available. I want to touch on what Dan said, because I think it's a great point. Is will Buster be able to separate the personal relationships? I think the further removed he gets from being a player, the better I feel about him being able to do that. And I do think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, at least initially, for him. That said, if he goes and signs Brandon Belt to be the first baseman next season, we might have our answer. But yeah, I wouldn't mind a guy like Goldschmidt. Someone mentioned Christian Walker in there. I would love Christian Walker. I think he might get too many years though, to where it's not going to be necessarily reasonable. Because to me, you cannot block Bryce Eldridge. Like you just can't. So. And he's too good. And Christian Walker is too good of a defender for you to be able to just like DH him. And if you try and DH Eldridge, you're hurting his development by not letting him play first base. So to me, it's kind of a tough situation. That's one where I personally would prioritize the development of who you're hoping is your next superstar. Yeah. Over trying to be just necessarily better this season. Eric, you asked a bunch of good questions in here. I flagged a couple. You believe the Buster move was 100% fan base. Buster wanted to be focused on his family, and taking the GM role contradicts that for me. My thoughts. Yeah, this is where I was really surprised that he was willing to take the role. I, for the longest time, kind of dismissed the idea of Buster taking either a managerial or an executive role, like where he was going to be doing more day-to-day stuff and more involved, because I did get the impression when he was retiring that the big thing for him was his family, and he has young kids. I think he has 4 kids now. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. I mean, I've got 1 daughter at home that's just over a year, and she's a handful. I can't imagine having 4 right now. So, I mean, I agree, but I don't think no one's focusing or no one's forcing Buster into doing anything that he doesn't want to do. So I think this is something that he wants.
I think it was telling when he moved from Georgia back to the Bay Area to, buy into that ownership role for the last couple of years. I think that was really, really telling. I think, I can't speak on behalf of the guy, but I mean, he did enjoy his family time for that short time after he retired. And then something must have changed or clicked, whether he missed the game, whether he wanted to be more involved, whether he was displeased with, the direction the team was going, because he went out of his way to move across the country in order to get back and get involved with the team. So I think, and I touched on it a couple weeks ago in one of our lives where you've seen Buster kind of take a more hands-on approach, because before he was kind of behind the scenes, a little bit more quiet. Now you started hearing him be a little bit more vocal. Now you started hearing him be a little bit more engaged. And it just kind of seemed like this upward trend with him as far as getting involved in the more of the operations side of things. And so with this opening up, like Cody said, he's not being forced to take this role. He must really want to. So, I think that just says a lot about who he is.
Let's see. We had a few more in there. Do I think Buster will have any specific impact on the catching position on the Giants? Patrick Bailey or drafting a good catcher? Well, yeah. Hopefully, he tells him to get that second knee up when there's runners on. Oh man, I can't help it. Sorry. No, I think realistically, like Patrick Bailey has value, like incredible value, with his defense in particular. He has some upside with his bat. He does show the power from time to time. Now, someone needs to get working with him, make him a little bit more aggressive, I think, of a swinger, because he takes a lot of pitches that are like middle, and that just kind of annoys me when he's hitting. But he clearly has tools, and a lot of what he does defensively, I've said in the past that to me, it's just cleaning a few things up and being more consistent and steady back there. Like that's the separator for me from him being just the best of kind of a watered down defensive group, because I don't really feel there's any true elite catchers anymore, and being like an actual generational talent back there. Because I think he has the talent. It's just, to me, it's frustrating because there's a lot of things that kind of boil down to laziness with his mechanics and things like that, that if he just worked on those, he would be truly one of the great defenders in today's game. But they definitely, as Dan's alluded to a few times, they definitely need to get a right-handed bat or a right-handed half of a platoon. They don't even need to be a good bat. Like I get what they were trying to do with Tom Murphy. I don't like it. Just get me another good defender that is just competent with the bat from the right side against lefties. That's all I care about. It doesn't have to be good. Just be competent. Get a guy like Travis d'Arnaud.
Yes.
Who's actually probably on the higher end of that, but
I feel like I feel like I'm the only one that's been asking for d'Arnaud. I feel like that should be a bigger need. Because you kind of touched on it with Bailey. That was one of the things that was in his scouting report when he was coming up, was that he has, lazy tendencies. And I think, with Buster literally being a generational catcher, literally being a top 10 catcher of all time, I don't think he's going to tolerate that. So hopefully he takes more of a hands-on approach to try to, take Bailey under his wing and not settle for, okay, you're good at framing and, that's all we need out of you. Like, no, you need a little bit more of those sharper tools, a little bit less laziness, address the right-handed side of the bat as far as the catching position is concerned. And hopefully, you can kind of turn the ship around next year. So,
yeah. All right, we're gonna get one more, and then I'll scroll back down trying to catch up. We had a few that I flagged here that I liked because Eric hit us with a few in a row. Speaking of moves, what pitchers do you think the Giants could sign for reliever starter role? I really like Spencer Turnbull, and he's done well this year. Your thoughts? Yeah, Turnbull would be good. They have a couple young pitchers I really like in their system currently that we just saw one of them yesterday, and Trevor McDonald. I've said he would be probably a really good reliever. They've been trying to develop him as a starter. I don't really like his motion as far as it holding up as a starter. He pronates his arm, and it's just, to me, he's going to have arm issues. He's already had arm issues. So I'm kind of on the fence there, but he has the stuff of a reliever. I mean, he throws mid to high 90s and has, as we saw, a really nasty slider. So he could be pretty solid in the pen. I think Tristan Beck is going to play a big role next season if he's healthy. Really good to see him finish strong. I'm going to have to really dig into who's out there. I won't be shocked if we end up seeing them go after like a left-hander out there.
Truthfully, I was going to, sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, truthfully, the bullpen wasn't awful in the second half of the season. They were top 10. So I don't think bullpen is a huge need to address, depending on what happens with Taylor Rogers. Because they waived him. Everybody knows in August they waived him, and then he stuck around, and they don't want him at that salary next season. So depending on what happens with him, like you said, you might have, a lefty reliever position open up in the pen. So maybe they can address someone like that depending on who's available. But I don't think it's a huge need.
Yeah. I mean, bad last outing aside, Eric Miller was pretty solid for the most part this season.
Great. Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of Randy Rodriguez next season. I think you're going to see a lot of, I think Ryan Walker locked down the closer role, but I don't think Doval's going anywhere. So you're probably going to see Doval still in some kind of setup role. And you're going to see a lot of young guys, I think. Hopefully they can get a lefty in there because I do think they're going to need one more. But I don't think they really want to invest a lot of money in another reliever. So I think you're going to get, if anything, you'll get like an under the radar guy. Like when they signed Scott Alexander, you're going to see him sign a guy for $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah.
And yeah. All right, let's catch up here. Dan answered that as far as why aren't they really interested in Alonso? Probably because of his contract that he's going to require.
Yeah.
So
that's why I said that's why I recommended Goldschmidt on a 1 year. He's up there in age. If you can land him for 1 year to kind of be a bridge, I'm fine with that. But they're not going to go long-term deal at first base. Yeah. So you're probably not going to get an Alonso, probably not going to get a Christian Walker because they feel Bryce is pretty close.
Yeah. Christian Walker on a 1 year deal would be like the dream.
That'd be amazing.
Perfect signing. Should move to the outfield if they have a chance with Alonso. So here's the thing. They tried him out in the outfield. I don't know if you remember, after they drafted Eldridge, they love his arm. They feel like he's a better athlete than many people give him credit for. So they tried him out in the outfield and it did not go well. So that's part of why they put him back at first base. I don't think the other part of this is putting him out in the outfield it's a tougher fit because this team has almost no depth at first base in the system. I mean, we've seen that this year. Yeah. I mean, they're bringing Trent Brooks up at one point. Like they have very little depth. They've been trying guys like Sable out at first base, but then you go to the outfield, you have obviously Ramos and Lee are locks. And then you also have McRae, you have Matos, you have Bishop, you have Pomaris coming. They just drafted Tibbs and they expect him to move fast. They have a ton of outfielders, young outfielders that are not super far off from the major leagues. So they have a lot more depth there. So now granted, we can debate if any of those guys are going to be starters. We'll see. There's a lot that remains to be seen there, but they have guys with potential in the outfield. They don't really have that at first outside of Eldridge. So I don't think they're going to put him there. I agree. He could probably be fine in left field, but there are a lot of people that are super high on him defensively. For this being his first full season at first, I thought he looked fine for a guy that was making basically his debut there. And hopefully he continues to improve. That's part of why I guarantee you his defense is part of why he's in the fall league is to keep getting him reps there because that's going to be the most important thing.
I'll put it this way. Bryce Eldridge in his first year at 19 years old at first base was as good, if not better than what we've seen out of Wade and Flores at first. And they're in their 30s. So he can literally only get better at the position. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
Yeah. And you know what? If he turns into a DH or a left fielder down the road, they'll cross that bridge. But I've seen he's got good athleticism. He has a really good arm. He does a lot of good things at first. Yeah. I wouldn't expect Brandon Belt defense right when he shows up.
Yeah.
So yeah, great. Get a big time hitter and think about who wears the first baseman later.
For sure.
It's not wrong. It's unfortunately that's the one thing that's kind of bugged me is first base has become like the least valuable position on the diamond. And it has become so devalued that they just kind of throw whoever can't play anywhere else at first. And I personally like having a great defender at first. You can save your infielders so much. You improve the defense of your entire infield by having a guy that can pick it at first. And I just don't understand why they don't, like, so many teams just don't understand that. So it's mind-boggling to me. So I mean, yeah, there's a name that we haven't even listed yet, and that's a guy like Cody Bellinger, who, if he opts out, that's a guy that plays really good defense at first base, and he has the versatility that you can move him around. And even for this season, when he had a down year, I think he still was like 12% better than league average.
Yeah.
Offensively. So not, that's a guy that you could hit in the 5-hole, and he knocks runs in. He brings some good things there. So that's another name we could throw out there. I'm not as high on him this season as I was last season, but that's partially to do with the emergence of a guy like Elliot Ramos.
Yeah,
makes it a little easier to stomach not pursuing him next season.
For sure.
Are we letting Yaz go? Road King Rob asks.
Hopefully.
I don't know. I think he gets tendered a contract. I don't know if he ends up playing for the Giants or if he gets traded though.
Yeah, I think it's time to cut ties. I talked about it. He's been a good Giant, but you have, like you said, you have so much depth in the outfield. You got potential to sign big name outfielders. You need to upgrade, the bat. And that's a position where you need to get younger at. So I think you should.
Yeah. If they whiff on any of the any of the big bats that play the outfield, I wouldn't be shocked if he's back another year and they bring Matos up and they basically, with between McRae, Matos, and Yaz, and they basically have the hopes of hopefully one of those two young guys takes his job and they can move him at the deadline. But if they don't, he's just kind of a safety net.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
George.
Boston baked beans. Love it. Do you think that is it crazy to throw Soto money to Snell and Burns 6-10? I don't think it's necessarily crazy, but I wouldn't invest that much to combined, I guess would be the thing. I'm fine with throwing one of them that deal, but
yeah,
that's a tough pill to have that much invested in your rotation especially when you feel good about a lot of the young talent that's in the rotation.
Yeah,
I'm still pretty high on Harrison and Birdsong, and Wisenhunt, we'll see. I think his changeup's so good that he's going to figure it out eventually, but he had a pretty tough year this season.
Yeah.
So,
and then you can't forget Ray's going to opt in. You got to pay that contract.
Yes. So. Exactly.
Yes, Joe, agree on that. Because that's one of the things we kind of addressed last week and that I've been very vocal about. Because when Farhan was in, he made the comments last week, was like, oh, I think I was too aggressive in free agency at times. And the thing is that he was aggressive at signing mediocrity. He was aggressive in the Confortos, Hanigers, Solairs, those types of deals, the Nick Ahmeds, those types of deals where you're blocking your young talent and you're wasting money on a washed up journeyman that, has no future with your organization. So you got to change that narrative and be aggressive at legit star/elite potential talent, not the middle of the pack mediocrity that nobody's even interested in. You're just hoping it'll stick. So
yeah. Posey can even trade a few of those young starts for a bat. Absolutely. That's something that we have constantly, that was one of our biggest criticisms on Farhan Zaidi's tenure, was the fact that it's not just simply that he never made any bold moves, trades, signings really, during his tenure. It's the fact that he just constantly let young players' value evaporate.
Yes.
You get guys like Joey Bart, Marco Luciano, and now even guys like Luis Matos and Casey Schmidt are examples, because these are all 4 guys that were top 100 prospects at one point or another. And Elliot Ramos was down that road before he broke out this season. His value had completely gone prior to this past season. So it was just a constant with him that he would get these guys and he wouldn't give them the proper time to develop, but then he'd also let all of their value go away. So you couldn't move them anymore for anything of value. So that's how you end up trading a Joey Bart for an Austin Strickland. And, now the Pirates are sitting there thinking, well, we just made out like bandits because we gave up absolutely nothing for Joey Bart, who was one of their better hitters this season, and have them feeling pretty good about what they have at the catcher position going forward. And it's just incredibly frustrating. So, I mean, you look at the Dodgers and how they've built their roster. They constantly have a top ranked farm system, and they have yet to produce that many good players out of that farm system. You look around the league and half of them, most of these guys they trade just don't turn into good players. The Giants have had about as much success as the Dodgers when it comes to producing good players from their farm system in the last 5 or 6 years, but the Dodgers trade their guys and turn them into stars that they then, extend. So
and that's the biggest thing, and that's my biggest gripe when you got these guys on X that are saying, oh, well, you should have given him 2 more years, like, oh, he wasn't that bad, blah blah blah. You look at exactly what Cody just said. You've got these top 100 prospects that Farhan didn't want to trade and didn't want to play. So what are you doing, man? Like you want them to rot in Sacramento. You want to waste and take advantage of their option years. You want to sign 35-year-old Nick Ahmeds to play over them. And then you bring them up and we're going to give you 3 at-bats a week. And then we're going to give you 1 start every 12 days and then send you back down to Sacramento when you don't perform in those 12 at-bats that you're up. Yeah. And it's like, that's one of the biggest issues that I had. And then Ricky actually pointed this out to Cody and I. He had 14 draft picks in his 6-year tenures make the majors, and 3 of them didn't even debut with the Giants. So it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? So this is what we're talking about when, a change was needed. And you need to get a guy in, like you said, where you can either trade some young stars for a bat, you can start to actually develop your players properly. These are just prime examples as to what we're referring to.
Do you think Buster has the wherewithal to trade for Kyle Tucker?
No.
I don't. Okay. I think Buster would be willing to make that trade. I don't know if the Giants have the farm system to complete that trade without including Bryce Eldridge.
Exactly.
That said, that's only looking at it from a farm system perspective. I do think they would have the assets to get it done if they are willing to include some of the guys up on the major league roster. Doesn't mean you'd have to move like a Ramos, but I could see, a guy like Harrison, being a value, or a Birdsong. But I don't think it's a realistic one, honestly. Unfortunately, I love Kyle Tucker. He's one of my favorite players out there that might be attainable by trade, but I struggle to see how that deal gets done. Given that I'm assuming the Giants aren't going to be interested in moving Eldridge.
Yeah, just to start negotiations, they're going to want, or they're going to say, okay, we want Eldridge, Harrison, Wisenhunt, Tibbs, and Matos, just to start negotiations. Like, it's going to be way too expensive. You're going to deplete all of your young talent for the most part. It's not going to be something as simple as like a Harrison and a Schmidt, because like we just said, Farhan destroyed any value that Schmidt might have had. So if we had a better farm, it's possible you can make a run for it, but it's not plausible right now.
Yeah, like if Houston wanted to do this deal, I would do it 100%. I just don't think it would get done. Mm-hmm. You're looking at least one more higher end prospect,
and he's also going into his deal for them. I was going to say he's also going into his last year of his contract, so you're going to give out and you're going to fork up a hefty package to get him, and then you just have to pray that you can extend him. Otherwise, it's a 1-year rental, and you just forked up any little bit of talent that you had. So it's just not likely.
Yeah, I mean, George, it might not cost quite that much. I don't think they necessarily have the high end prospects. Is the biggest issue.
That's the thing.
That's been the Giants' biggest problem, is they don't have these top end prospects. I mean, they have one right now. They have one truly top end prospect that would have great value in acquiring a star. The problem is it's the guy that everybody is like the highest on, and he's so close to getting to the majors to help contribute that I just don't think it happens, because I don't think they're going to have any willingness to put him in a deal.
Yeah.
So, like Vlad Jr. is a good example. I don't think they could get that deal done. I think Bichette might be doable, given that the year he just came off, but I also wouldn't be shocked if the Jays just decide, we're going to bet on him as recovering some value, because he played so poorly last season that frankly we're not going to get anything for him right now, so we'll wait till the deadline and flip him then. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they do. Penn, just so you know, George, Pence had 1.5 years left when they traded for him. They when they traded for him in 2012, they got he was under contract through 13, and then they extended him at the end of 13. So that's another guy that's a big, he's a big ambassador for the Giants, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and third, if they would take Harrison Schmidt, Duvall, and Luciano, I'd probably do it. But again, is that someone they're willing to do? You destroyed all the value that Schmidt and Luciano had. So that's the thing. It's just the value.
Yeah. I think Schmidt recovered some, luckily with his play, both in the majors and AAA this season. He showed some good development this season. We touched on it on the last show, go check that one out if you want like the breakdown. But his final numbers were significantly better than 2023. And a lot of the outlier numbers as far as like chase rate, walk rate, or not walk rate, sorry, chase rate, strikeout rate, whiff rates, like all those things improved. So he did take steps forward, and I know I'm higher on Schmidt than a lot of people are, but I felt like he played his way into their plans next season. So I could see a team like Houston wanting Schmidt, but it's tough because when you're going to make those deals, like usually you're making them for a high-end prospect, and there are other teams that probably will have higher end prospects that have better tools that would interest them more than what the Giants have to offer. It's not that I think that they would hate the Giants offer. I think they just would like another team's offer better, unless the Giants included a guy like Eldridge. So,
yeah, for sure.
Oh, here's a good one. We've talked about this a little bit. Sorry, Joe. What was wrong with Harrison this year? Well, I mean, he's always has the command issue. Ricky and I really were hard on, especially the shape of his sweeper or slurve or whatever you want to call that thing that he throws. It's just very loopy. I felt like he needed to develop a sharper, snappier slider. It either needed to be more horizontal or more vertical, but just the way it was just very loopy, I felt like it wasn't fooling anyone out of his hands. Now, that said, it looked better at the end of the season, but then, of course, that coincided with his velocity disappearing. So send him over to Driveline, get that velocity back up. Hopefully he does a ton of lower body work this offseason and can stay, healthy and built up going into next season and last better and deeper into the season. But yeah, I mean, his command is a bit all over the place, but when you couple that your command isn't great and then you're also not fooling people with your off speed, it's a tough combination.
Yeah. No, for sure. Agreed.
So.
Agreed. Hang on. I'm going to go let my dog outside. He keeps trying to pace and let me know. It's going to be Cody solo for 90 seconds. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah. All right, what else you guys got? Let's see. If you're talking Bichette at shortstop, are you saying the Giants have no shortstop in the near future? Yeah. So actually, Turd, we actually talked a little bit about this, and this is part of why I'm willing to fork out that big deal for a guy like Adames. This has been an issue. If you look at the Giants system right now, at shortstop, they basically have a bunch of guys that are either not hitting almost at all in the minors, or you don't feel like they could hit enough to stick in the majors, or you have a bunch of guys that realistically aren't going to stick at shortstop. You know, guys like Tyler Fitzgerald, who, yeah, he can play it a little bit, and you'd feel fine with him playing there on a given day as a utility guy, but you can tell he's not an everyday shortstop. And you have guys like Walker Martin, who probably will end up having to move off. Diego Velasquez, who's definitely better at second base than he is at shortstop. And then Fitzgerald, obviously, I already mentioned. And then, you know, guys like Casey Schmidt, who he'll play, you know, his natural position's third base, and he actually looked above average at second base, but at shortstop, he's pretty below average. So there's just not really anything in the system currently. The closest guy I would say that has a chance is a guy like Everson Arteaga, who just had thoracic outlet. He has some nice power with his bat, great glove, but you know, he just had that injury. He's still in high A. He'll probably be in double A next season. That's kind of the one guy, or unless Diego Velasquez can, you know, improve his defense at short to where they felt good enough for him playing there. I don't see that happening. And then you go all the way down into the lower levels, and guys like Maui Ahuna isn't hitting enough. Cole Foster isn't hitting enough. Those were the two college guys they drafted. And then Walker Martin struck out at an absurd rate this year. So I don't see anything internal at shortstop. The closest things they have, and this is sad to say, the closest things they have to shortstops that are going to be, you know, hopefully really good prospects and really good players is a 17-year-old in the DSL right now, in Johnny Level, and then Hoswar de Jesus Gonzalez, who hasn't even signed yet and can't until January. So, and he's going to be, and he's 16. So, like, that's the problem. That's why I personally have no issue blowing out this huge deal to a guy like Willy Adames. You know, maybe by the end of that deal, you're moving him off shortstop, but I have no problem getting a guy like him to lock it down, at least for, you know, it'll be a longer deal, but like at least the next 5 years, you're like, this guy's going to be playing short. And then maybe we move him to second at the back end of the deal. So this is actually, Joe, this has been pretty well reported. A lot of the international signees have deals in place pretty far in advance. He's already been, like, he has a verbal agreement to the Giants. So yes, there's always a possibility that that backs out. It does not happen often, though. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare to see them back out of those deals, but he has a verbal agreement. He's already got the Giants like on his Instagram stuff and all these different things. He posted a thing the other day that was like a Giant in 2025 or something like that. It is as close to a sure thing as it can be without it being done, is the way to put it. It's until the pen, you know, until the ink dries. I always have those, like, you know, I always try and pump the brakes a little bit, but this is just kind of how it works with international signings. It's like they've already known for almost a year now that they're lined up to sign Luis Hernandez, who's going to be a top 5 prospect in the next international signing period. He has an agreement with the Giants, but, you know, it's like you said, it's always possible that he could back out. It's just very infrequent that happens.
Yeah, what he said.
And who mentioned there's an imbalance? I think that might have been Joe too.
Yeah, Gran.
Yeah, I agree. There does need to be, they need to fix the farm as well as what's on the major league roster. But unfortunately, the farm is probably not going to fix overnight. And that's why I'm willing to fork it out for Adames, because you can fix the major league roster now and then try and build the farm back up. Exactly. So
Yeah, that's the thing. When you
And
got
we
a
got
bad
141 people here. It's awesome.
Nice. But no, I was saying when you got a bad, you're a mediocre, I won't say bad. You got a mediocre big league roster with a bad farm system. That's not a recipe for success.
Yeah, unfortunately. Oh, and you know what? It's like I gave Farhan credit on the last video. I'm always happy to give him the credit where it's due. He has done a better job with the international signings, and I hope that Posey continues that. That has been something that he did well at. That said, his drafting and developing has been, we'll say, suspect, to put it as kindly as possible. And we'll see what they do. Going forward, I hope the last couple drafts I liked more than the first four. So we'll see how they pan out. And yeah, I mean, George just said it. They need to do a better job developing the kids. I mean, straight up, the last 3 years, and I get it, coming off of 2021, it was hard to sit there and just be like, oh, just, blow it up. And, but when Posey retired, like that, to me, that was, I think anybody that underrated Buster Posey's impact on the Giants just needs to look at that season. Look at 2022 when it just went sideways on them after he retired. So it's just, and for 3 straight years to play an aging roster and make these kids scratch and claw for every little at bat they get, and then have them feeling like if they fail at all, they're going right back down to Sacramento. And I get it. It's competition and it should bring, breed results, but this is a game of failure. And these guys need to be able to learn how to, it's a lot different when you compare baseball to a game like football or basketball or whatever like that, where baseball is truly a game of failure. So these guys need to be able to learn how to fail at the major league level and then figure out how to be successful off of that. And when all you do is send them down, they just start pressing, and they just it's brutal. So
no, absolutely. Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Do you have any other topics you want to hit? Anybody, if you guys got something, put it in there. We're probably going to wrap it up here shortly. We just wanted to pop on with the Farhan news. I know we don't normally do the Monday Night Lives, but
gotta hop on and celebrate, man. It's a holiday. Yeah, I'm excited for the news conference tomorrow. I'm really curious to hear what they're going to say, what questions are going to be asked, what they're going to say about Patilla, if there's any other changes, because I know they kind of hinted that there were some staff openings now that Posey would fill, so that kind of got me wondering, which ones? So stuff like that, anything coaching staff related, because you have to imagine they want to get the staff in the front office kind of set in stone before offseason kicks in here in about a month and a half or whatever. So hoping we get some big news tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, if it'll be interesting. The Patilla one's the first one that I'm really interested to see. If they move on from him, there's some names out there. I know Kim, I think it's Kim Eng. I don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah, I know she's a name that's been getting brought up. Billy Owens has been getting brought up a lot from the A's, which, I mean, we all crack up about the A's, but look at some of the young talent they've got over there right now.
Kidding.
There's a few guys. There's a few others. I know Rob was mentioning Tabolo. Is it Dave? He's got a California background. I mean, David Bell, someone mentioned earlier. I wouldn't be shocked if he comes back in some front office role. There's a few people out there. Tanner Scott, would I sign him? I mean, for the right price, yeah, absolutely. I like I said earlier, they need a lefty in the pen. I think that's the one spot that they really could improve in the pen, would be a good lefty reliever.
Eric and Mark, first big splash move. Honestly, probably Blake Snell.
Yeah.
I think he can get that
kind of
done.
get the feeling they're going to get him locked up long term.
I think so too. They did you see that thing on X where they announced the news on Instagram and Snellzello was one of the first to like it?
Yes.
And so I'm like, oh, okay. Because me, if it's like, this is the way I think. If you're leaving a team and you have a pretty good idea that you're gone, I don't think you would be liking, stuff like this from your quote unquote former team. So
I do think Snell enjoyed it in San Francisco. I think Snell, but I think he wants to win. So I think he's going to need to feel like this team's got a direction in the right, it's pointed in the right direction. But ultimately, I think he's going to take the biggest money, and he's going to take it probably from a West Coast team. And if the Dodgers and Padres get involved, it gets a little tricky. That's going to be the tough one.
Yeah, so here's hoping he can pull that off. That'd be cool. And then Eric, to answer your question, Cody and I both want Adames. Our preference probably goes Adames, Bichette, then Kim in that order. Kim would have been the most realistic choice and probably the most probable one if Farhan was still around and if Kim was healthy. He does have a labrum injury, so I think that might deter the team in general. So I think you go after Adames, you go all in for Adames. If you get outbid or you don't land them for whatever reason, you can kind of pivot to potentially making a trade for Bo. But I would stay away from Kim now just because of that labrum thing. Because you're gonna not see him for most of next year, and then he's gonna be rehabbing and rusty, so you won't really get to see Ha-Seong Kim until 26 if you're being realistic.
Yeah, and the big underrated thing with signing a guy like Adames that I've brought up, for anybody that's looked at his numbers with runners in scoring position for starters, excellent. He's hit over 300 twice, two of the last 3 seasons with runners in scoring position. I think he drove in over 110 runs this season.
Yeah.
And he's been over like 80, 90 the last 2. Really good run producer. But the underrated thing with a guy like Adames that I was mentioning the other day, and a big reason why he would be at the top of my list, is when Bryce Eldridge comes up, you have got to have protection for him.
Yeah.
Somebody legitimate behind him. And I do not want him coming up and having Matt Chapman and I'm not trying to crap on Chapman because the reality is he had a phenomenal season, but he is not great with runners in scoring position. And I want him to have some legit protection behind him when Eldridge comes up, because I want him to be in the best spot for success. So I think that's something that, it shouldn't be overlooked when you're getting a guy like Adames, is the impact he could potentially have on a young guy in front of him.
Yeah.
So
let me read a couple of these. Who do you think is most likely to become a coach that's a fan favorite? I think not necessarily fan favorite, but we kind of touched on it. Nick Hundley is probably under the radar guy that can become a coach. But if you want to go based off of like the core, I don't know if I could see Crawford getting into coaching like this soon. At least he's got like 6 kids at home and one that was just born a couple months ago, so he's got his hands full for sure. Maybe Bell, I don't know. You don't really hear much about him. Pence, he's into broadcasting, so that's not likely. Wotus, he's got his gig.
Yeah, I think Crawford would probably be the best coach of them.
Agreed.
As an infield coach, but I don't know. I would love for them to bring Belt and Snow and be like, go work with Bryce Eldridge. That's literally your job, is to go work with him.
Oh yeah.
But
I've been wanting.
I don't know. Them. Can the Giants move off Race 2 for $50 million contract? Probably not.
Nope.
Not well. Here. Could they? Yes, but it's going to be just how they moved off of Haniger and DeSclafani. You're going to take back another horrible contract, and I think the one thing with Ray's deal is you can stomach it with how cheap a lot of the rest of the rotation is. And if he's healthy, he historically has been good to give you like 175 plus innings. So he could give you good value. It's not going to be, the Cy Young winning Robbie Ray, but it could be at least valuable, and then he eats up a good amount of innings.
Yeah, I think if he's fully healthy and pitches to the best of his abilities, I think he'll be a solid 3 or 4 in your rotation, which is all you could really hope for. So I wouldn't really mind that. Vogie for pitching coach, yeah, we would love that.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, we kind of mentioned that earlier in the year. I kind of forgot about him though.
We did.
Yeah, Vogie would be an awesome pitching coach, I think.
Yeah. Vogt is going to be locked up with Cleveland for a while. He's not going away anytime soon. Eric,
he shouldn't try to leave.
Yeah,
honestly,
he shouldn't. He shouldn't. Eric, I'm pretty confident it'll be Ramos next season. If Ramos was here the first month and a half that he was in Sacramento,
he'd have a push.
And if he would have had a push for sure, and then if he never had that thumb issue that he dealt with for the last 2 months of the year, it would have been an additional push. I think Ramos for sure will get you 30 next season. And then I think Adames is going to get you 30 next season as well.
Hell, we'll just say it. And Chapman will do it too. They're just going to all do it.
All 3 of them. And
then Tyler Fitzgerald will have 29 stolen bases and then pull his hamstring.
Yeah.
Because that's how it goes for the stolen base.
Giants baseball, nothing like it.
Yeah.
I hope they change that slogan next year. I really do.
For the love of God, you cannot run that back 3 years in a row.
No, change nothing like it, and then change the City Connects. They did change it, but apparently the new ones are sick. Did you hear Webb's little interview that he had?
Yeah.
They asked him, like, what's your favorite? Yeah, he was like, they asked him, oh, what's your favorite uniform? And he was like, the new City Connects. He's like, you haven't seen them yet, but the new ones. I was like, oh, shoot.
I wonder if he's actually seen him or if he's just trolling people.
Well, the rumor is
butt ugly.
The rumor is that it's a Grateful Dead theme, which I'm like, how would you do that?
I'm excited to see how that would turn out, because I feel like that's something that could either look incredible if you do it well, or it is just going to be the most hideous thing you've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's going to be like those brown Padres jerseys.
No, literally, there's no in between. If you go with Grateful Dead City Connect, it's either going to be really, really good or really, really bad. So, here's hoping, man.
Giants baseball.
Don't ask. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I used to just flip the words. When they were like nothing like it, I just said, Giants baseball, no one likes it. Like that was my slogan for him.
Yeah.
But yeah. Grand. Yeah, you're gonna hope Casey balls out. Hey, and I mentioned it last week. That's another reason to keep Casey around. Yes, Chapman has been super durable in his career, but he did have like the finger injury in Toronto. He's had different little things that could pop up that could cause him to miss time. Having a guy like Casey Schmidt on the roster is, it's valuable in that if Chapman ever has an injury like that, you can shift Casey over to third and your drop off defensively is minuscule.
Yeah. And it's not going to be like when we were playing Wilmer at third last season.
JD Davis.
Or JD. Dude, you guys in the comments, did you guys see any of those crazies that when we signed Chapman, they're like, oh, JD can give you the same production. JD's just as good defensively. JD's just as good of a bat. You just paid $80 million for JD Davis. How'd that pan out? How did that pan out for you? JD was on 3 teams by the end of the season with a combined 2 home runs and like a 127 batting average.
Hey, I know it beats rough trying to catch fly balls.
Meckler.
Oh, actually, I was going to say Jock Peterson trying to catch balls.
Wade Meckler, bro. Give me Ruff or Jock over Meckler in the outfield any day. And I'm not even exaggerating.
At least they're giving Meckler run at second base.
It's about damn time. Yeah, it's about time.
We were calling for that for so long.
Since like March, bro.
Who's been watching since March of 2023.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Anybody else got anything before we wrap it up? We'll keep it to like an hour and a half today. If anybody has any last second ones, we'll throw it up there. But otherwise, we will. I don't know if we'll do another live this week. We're gonna start figuring out though the off-season content and what we're gonna talk about. We will do an off-season preview. We wanted to wait until this shoe dropped, so to speak. We were waiting for the news on who was going to be the president going forward, because it has a lot of impact on this team clearly, and how the direction we feel like they can go. Because it's with Farhan, unfortunately, there was just not a lot of optimism surrounding it if he was going to be running it. We could talk all day about all the things they could do, but I would be lying if I said that I felt confident in them doing any of them. With Posey, I feel like they're going to do something bold this offseason.
No, for sure. For sure. Yes, Rob, the news was that Lee's rehab is going great. He should be 100% and out there in spring training. So
yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
Ding dong, the witch is gone, and Buster we trust. Amen, fellas.
Yes, 100%. All right, everybody. We appreciate you guys all hanging with us tonight. It's a lot of fun. I love when the chat's like this. We have like 134 people still in here watching.
That's
appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't hit it already, hit the subscribe button. I lied. I'm going to pander again, but hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'll be putting more content out. I don't know. We'll think of some ideas for this season. Turd, I do think Duvall is going to be back another season. I think can't trade him when his value's at its lowest right now. They'll at least try to see if he can recover some. But appreciate all you guys.
And don't forget, before you go to bed, make sure you pour one out for Farhan.
Love it. All right. Catch you guys.
Later.